Good morning. It is 10 o'clock Central Standard Time, February the March the 29th, lost a month there, 2021. Out here at the Environmental Center, it's sunny and it's getting warmer. It's going to turn into a beautiful day. I hope you get to enjoy it. And I want to say a very special welcome to Prestonwood Richardson ISD, Browner from Granbury ISD, Oakwoods from Granbury ISD, and Martha Turner Riley from Dallas ISD. Welcome all of you to the Dallas Independent School District STEM Environmental Education Center virtual field trip. Teachers, if you have not registered and you're watching, if you would, please go to www.tiny.cc/EEC register. Sign up. This is just for our attendance records only. Today we're doing a program called Producers and Consumers. During this virtual field trip, students will investigate that most producers need sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to make their own food, while consumers are dependent on other organisms for food. Lefty Nash will talk to you about producers. Mr. Broughton will cover herbivores. Ms. Fuller will cover carnivores. And Ms. Ramirez will tell you all about omnivores. During this field trip, you cannot speak to us verbally, but you can ask questions. www.tiny.cc/EEC /question/answer. Send us your questions in. I'll do my best to answer them during the program. If not, I'll answer them and send them to your teacher. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Ms. Nash is going to tell you all about producers.
There we go. Yes, there we go. Okay, slowly. I hurt my right hand, and it's interesting to try to do everything with your left hand. It's harder than you think, or if you're left-handed, to try to do everything with your right hand. But in any case, here we are. We're talking about the producers, and there are a few very rare and specialized producers that are not plants, but most of the producers on our planet are the plants. Producer means they make their own food. So sometimes I make my own food, I make my own bread, or I make my own dinner, but that's different. The plants make their own energy, make using three things only: sun, air, and water. Amazing. Sun, air, and water. That's all they need. And they do it through an amazing process called photosynthesis. Can you say that big word for me? Photosynthesis. And it means made with light. That part photo has to do with light. Like a photograph is a picture made with light. Photosynthesis takes place in the cell of the plant. There's a model of the plant cell in a special organ called the chloroplast. And you may have heard that word chlorophyll. That's what gives the plant its green color. Now, there are other colors of chlorophyll too, so not all plants are green, but most of them are. So in that chloroplast, that's where all the magic of the science happens. So there were billions of years ago, there were other things living on our planet that were not plants. And some of them still survive today, the anaerobic bacteria, for example. But when the plants came along, they changed the whole planet. They changed the atmosphere of our planet. If we had landed in a spaceship on that ancient Earth before planets, we stepped out, we took a deep breath, we would have fallen over dead. There was no oxygen. Plants made all that oxygen. And they did it through that photosynthesis. So sun, air, and water. And what they're doing, they're taking the sunlight, they're using that as their energy source. And then they're using water and part of the air, the carbon dioxide. And in the process of photosynthesis, they make oxygen as a waste product. And then they give that oxygen out to the atmosphere. And they change the atmosphere. Wow, okay, Pretty amazing. So, thank you, plants. Take a deep breath. Thank you, plants. If you had breakfast this morning, I hope you did, you probably ate plants. Cereal, maybe some fruit, orange juice. Now, for my lunch, I'm going to be having yogurt. Yogurt is made with milk, and milk comes from a cow. But what does the cow eat? Plants. So all of it starts with the plants. Pretty amazing. And for the plant, I lost leaf. Well, another one. So it all starts for the plant in the leaf. See how green that is? And it has two sides, and you can kind of compare them. Okay. This side's where the sunlight's going to hit. It's kind of a darker green in general. And it's got these lines. Okay. You might know what those are called? That's right, veins. So we have veins too, okay, with blood. Now plants don't have blood, but they have a liquid, the water that they suck up from their roots. It goes up to the stem, out to the veins, to the leaf. And in the leaf, it's going to be helping make sugar. And then that sugar is going to be carried by the veins again to all parts of the plant so it can grow and live. Okay. Now, the leaf is also breathing. Well, they don't breathe like we do. So when we take a deep breath, we take in all the air, and in our lungs, we're taking out the oxygen, and then we're breathing out the rest of the nitrogen, other stuff we don't need, and the carbon dioxide. That's a byproduct of our life. But the plants are taking, they don't have lungs, but they have little pores on the leaf that open and close, and they take in the air, they use the carbon dioxide, and then they give off that oxygen that's a byproduct, a waste product of photosynthesis. Pretty amazing. Now, some plants, amazingly enough, don't have leaves. Oh, they're like this leaf. Okay. Those cool veins. Okay. Kind of a cool thing to look at. With a hand lens, you can go outside, find any old leaf, any weed or whatever plant you have, maybe in your classroom or at home or out in the yard. You don't even have to pick it. You can look at it when it's still growing. And you can take a hand lens and look at the detail. Look how tiny the veins get. Okay? And compare those two sides of the leaf. Because again, this is the side where the sunlight's hitting. Now, some plants, amazingly enough, have gotten rid of their leaves, like my cactus here. So cactus live in a very dry habitat, a desert maybe. And leaves dry out. When they're opening and closing those little pores, the stoma, they're also losing moisture. And you may have seen a plant wilting when you forgot to water it. The leaves got all wilted. So cactus said, this is no good, we're wilting. And they got rid of their leaves. But then they had to do photosynthesis somewhere else. And they've got these green stems, okay, to do photosynthesis. No leaves anymore, but they're still plants doing photosynthesis. And the other amazing thing they did is most plants open their stoma in the daytime, because that's when they're actively getting the sunlight, right? But the cactus, because they lose moisture that way, they open theirs at night when there's less evaporation and it's not as hot. Pretty amazing, eh? So plants are so interesting in all the ways they've adapted to all the different habitats. Now, there are a few very rare organisms that are producers of their own energy without sunlight. And those, you can look these up online. In the bottom of the oceans where chemicals come out of cracks in the ocean floor, there are little bacteria that begin eating the chemicals. And they can start another food chain that does not depend on sunlight. But for our purposes, really and truly, the plants are the ones that we have to thank. So at Thanksgiving, when they go around the room and they say, what are you thankful for? I say, I'm thankful for photosynthesis and the opposable sun. Because without those two things, we would not have the food to eat, clothes to wear, a house to live in, and all the other things that we get from our friends, the plants, the producers of their own food energy. So thank you. And if you have any questions, Dr. Gorman would be glad to answer. But otherwise,
Thank you, Ms. Nash. Okay, the question is, do producers or plants continue to produce when it's cloudy? Yes, but very limited. It's just like giving gas to your car. The more gas you give it, the faster it goes. Well, the more sun that producers get, the more they produce. So yes, they do produce on cloudy days, but very limited. And now we're going to let Mr. Broughton tell us all about herbivores.
Thank you, Dr. Gorman. Yes, again, my name is Mr. Broughton, and I am going to tell you all about herbivores today. Herbivores are a special kind of plant, a special kind of animal that eats only plants. They never want to eat any meat. They just want to eat plants. And I'm walking to the barn here, but I've got to say hi to these ducks first because they always come up to me. And if I don't say hi, they get angry. Ducks are not supposed to be part of this segment because they are not herbivores. They eat plants, but they also eat bugs, and so they would not be considered a true herbivore. They just like to say hi when I come out. But we're going to get to the corral here and meet some herbivores that we have at our barn. You can kind of see them in the distance, but I'll get up a little closer. We have some cows out here and a sheep and a goat that you're going to meet, and they are all herbivores. So this first animal here is our sheep. This is Midnight, a Dorper sheep. Let me just get through the gate here, and I'll get a little better video of her. There she is. And this kind of sheep originates from Africa. They grow them for meat because they don't produce a lot of wool. You can kind of see she's pretty woolly right now, but we'll get her sheared and then she won't be so hot in the summertime. But she only likes to eat plants. So you can see that she's got her corral here to eat some grass, and she also eats some feed, but it's all plant-based. She does not like to eat meat at all. If you tried to give her some, she wouldn't eat it. But she's a pretty nice sheep. She likes to be petted. And I'm gonna move on here to our cows. And I think I'll start with CV, who is the white one. He is a longhorn calf because he's, I think, 8 months old. So until they're a year old, they're considered a calf. And then when he's a year, he will be a steer. He'll be quite a bit bigger than what he is right now, and his horns will also be much longer. And I don't know if he's going to let me pet him because he's still a little shy. I'll see if I can walk up to him. He might. Yeah, he's a little bit shy still because we haven't had kids out here to be around him, so he's not used to people as much as the other cows that we have out here. Longhorns originate from Spain, although this is more of a Texas longhorn. We got him from a ranch in, I think, Dublin, Texas. And so he is even registered with the Texas Longhorn Association of America. So he's a special guy. And now I'm going to go over to Chocolate, who is a Black Angus Holstein cross. Black Angus cows originate from Scotland, and Holsteins originate from Germany. And she's a cross between the two, and she's a lot more friendly because she's older, although she would still be considered a calf when she reaches a year old, which is getting close. She will be a heifer. And if she were to ever have a baby, then she would be called a cow. But until she has a baby, she'll be considered a heifer. And you can see, what is she eating there? Grass. They love it. They're like our own living lawnmowers out here. They'll keep eating this grass, and we'll have to actually move them to another pasture so they can eat the grass over there, because they will eat all the grass out here if we leave them here for a week or so. But that is Chocolate again, we call her chocolate because she's brown, and she is an herbivore. All they want to eat is grass. Now cows can't bite you because they have teeth on the bottom but not on the top. If you ever see a skull of a cow, you will notice that they have teeth on the bottom jaw but not on the upper jaw. And they also have only flat teeth because flat teeth help herbivores grind up grass or leaves or whatever plant they're eating. If they have sharp teeth, that means they probably eat meat because the sharp teeth help you tear meat better than flat teeth do. So cows will have flat teeth, and there's CV eating his grass quite happily. They spend most of the day doing just that, eating lots and lots of grass. So I'm going to make my way back to the barn here, and we'll meet one more animal who is also an herbivore. We'll get to say hi to Midnight one more time since she's standing right where I've got to walk. Hi, Midnight. How are you doing? She looks like she wants out because every time I open this gate, she's trying to go through it, but you are not coming out. You're staying in. All right, now we're going to go in the barn and meet our goat. His name is Jabez, and he also originates from Africa. He's actually laying outside, but I'm going to get a handful of feed to give him before I go see him because he likes to snack when he gets visitors. And maybe I'll even go around this way because he's outside and it's a beautiful day out, so we don't need to be going in the barn. There he is. How are you doing, Jabez? Here's some food. Eating. And they do have teeth on the top and bottom, but he doesn't bite because he doesn't want to eat me because I am meat. He just wants the plants. So he'll eat grass or this feed that I just gave him. And he's a little upset now because I don't have any more because he loves to eat. He's even sticking his head through there to try to find some more food, but he's a pretty good sized goat. He's a fully grown goat, so he would be called a buck or a billy, and he weighs around 200, maybe a little over 200 pounds. So he's a pretty good sized animal as well. These goats are raised for meat, although we will never eat him because he is our pet. But there is Jabez. So you've met 3 different herbivores today. Well, 2 cows, a sheep, and a goat. Other animals that are herbivores that live out here would be squirrels, rabbits, crickets. They only eat plants, so they don't have to be a mammal. They can be an insect as well. Some birds are herbivores because they only eat seeds. So we've got all kinds of animals that are herbivores out here. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Gorman to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton, for that interesting program. The question is, can people stay healthy eating plants only? And Mayo Clinic says a plant-based diet, which emphasizes fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, legumes, and nuts, is rich in fiber, vitamins, and other nutrients. And people who don't eat meat, vegetarians, generally eat fewer calories, less fat, weigh less, and have a lower risk of heart disease than non-vegetarians do. So it looks like you can get by, but not as healthy. Okay. Now our next question, or our next program, is going to be Miss Fuller telling you all about carnivores.
Hi, boys and girls. My name is Miss Fuller, and this is Spring. Spring is a ball python. Spring is a carnivore. I would show you her teeth, but I don't want her to bite me. So we're gonna be looking at some other carnivores. Let me share my screen with you. I'm gonna put her down. Put a little lid on her so she doesn't slither off. So let's see here. Carnivores, meat eaters. And you see a shark over there on the left and a tiger on the right. So what do the morphemes carne and vor mean? A morpheme is the smallest part of language that still holds meaning. So the morpheme carne means meat. If you speak Spanish, you know that. And vor is the morpheme from which we get the word devour or voracious, means eater. So this snake wants out. So I think I might just hold her. So you see two carnivores here. You see a lynx taking a big yawn and showing off those pointy teeth, and also a crocodile showing him their pointy teeth. So carne, meat, vor, eater. Carnivores eat meat. Can you name two carnivores? They're high on the energy pyramid, and some carnivores are apex predators. Orcas, sharks, tigers, lions, some snakes, birds of prey are apex predators that are also carnivores. Not all apex predators are carnivores. Humans are apex predators, but we're not carnivores. Okay, now cats carnivores. If you've ever looked at your kitty cat's teeth, you notice that they were all real pointy. Cats cannot taste sweet things, and the sweet things we eat come from plants, so they can't even taste that. They have no receptors. They lack the receptors in their mouth for tasting sweets. Now on the right, we've got a picture of lynx. Then they live in Colorado, other places that have a lot of snow. Their major food source are snowshoe hares. The guy over there on the left-hand side is a puma or mountain lion, and we do have those here in Texas. Now, snakes are carnivores. They're also a favorite food for other carnivores, and snakes are a favorite food for other snakes. Some have venom and some are constrictors. Now, here in Texas, we have 105 species of snakes. Only 4 are venomous. The 4 venomous snakes we have here in Texas are the rattlesnake, the water moccasin, the copperhead, and the coral snake. All the others are constrictors, which means they kill their prey by squishing them, wrapping around them and depriving them of oxygen. And when the prey faints, they swallow them whole. Now, if you're from Kansas, Kansas has 42 species of snakes, and they also have 4 species that are venomous, the copperhead, but also 3 different kinds of rattlesnakes: the prairie rattlesnake, the timber rattlesnake, and the Massagaga rattlesnake. So they've got a lot of different kinds of rattlesnakes in Kansas. Now, sharks. Have very impressive teeth for tearing and ripping flesh. They are carnivores. You see a shark over there on the left showing you the lovely dentition. Over on the right hand is a tooth from a megalodon. I bet you're familiar with him. He had enormous teeth. His teeth would fill one tooth would fill your hand. Now, some dinosaurs were carnivores, not all of them, but a good many were. I put the picture of 2 that you're probably very familiar with. Spinosaurus and T-Rex were both carnivores. T-Rex is also a scavenger, and we think that he ate a lot of triceratops, which were herbivores. Now, all birds of prey are carnivores. I've got an owl, a barn owl, a kestrel, and a red-tailed hawk. Now, we have lots of red-tailed hawks here at the Environmental Center. We periodically have kestrels coming through. I've never seen a barn owl here, but I have seen a barred owl and also a great horned owl, and I think I've heard a screech owl here. So Now, vultures, we've got two kinds of vultures here at the Environmental Center. We have turkey vultures and we have black vultures. They are carnivorous and they are scavengers. Now, sometimes kids will ask me, I've heard that some plants are carnivores. Well, you think of the Little Shop of Horrors and the plant Audrey. Well, we've got two carnivorous plants here in Texas. One is the sundew, which is the one over there on the right-hand side. I'm going to play a real short little video from Texas Parks and Wildlife about the pitcher plant. And we find those in the Big Thicket.
We're on the pitcher plant trail here at Big Thicket National Preserve, and here is one pitcher plant with a couple of live ones inside. Can you see them moving? They were moving a second ago. It's like, oh yeah, you can see them move. They're moths, but anyways. So this is what it looks like. There's pitcher plants. I don't know if you can see those very well. Let's focus you. There, yeah. So all pitcher plants. You can kind of see them sticking their heads up out of the grass. So apparently the soil is low in nutrients. So there's the pitcher plants as well as the sundew. And it's because the low nutrient content of the soil due to standing water leaching the nutrients out, that they have to adapt ways to get more nutrients and eat insects, basically. So I really want to see one of the sundew. We did the sundew trail and we couldn't see any, but they have the trail closed off. And we're on the pitcher plant.
And I'm going to stop it there. And we're going to perhaps, let's see if we can go a little bit farther. I think we probably can. Here is our last question. Are all apex predators carnivores? Well, the answer to that is no. We are apex predators. And human beings are omnivores. Bears and wolverines are omnivores. They eat, during the summertime, they eat fruit, berries, and honey. So not all apex predators are carnivores. Let me stop sharing my screen. I'm going to show you some skulls and some teeth. So I'm going to start with the teeth of a shark. If you'll look at that, you can see they've got rows of teeth. They're very, very sharp for tearing flesh. And here is the skull of a bobcat. Here's the top. You can see how sharp her teeth are. And here's her lower jaw. You can see how sharp they are. I didn't kill the bobcat. The school bought these skulls through a biological company. And finally, I'm going to show you a model or a resin copy of an owl. Against the law to own the skulls of a predator bird like an owl or an eagle. You can get in big trouble. So this is just a resin copy of this. And you see the very sharp pointy beak. And there's the lower jaw. They don't have teeth. And my snake is wrapping around my microscope down here. The owl swallows its prey whole. And I've got a little Riker mount here of what it looks like. They swallow it whole, and then their stomach, they digest the digestible parts, and then they mash the fur and the bones and the toenails and the other hard parts together. And, okay, and it's called an owl pellet, and then they throw it up. And you can find them on the forest floor. And so anyway, I think that's about all I have to say about carnivores. They're very interesting animals, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gorman.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fuller. And the question is, can a person survive eating only meat? Okay, you might get scurvy like a pirate. Cooked meat contains very little vitamin C, notes Donald Betts, a nutritional biochemist at Iowa State University. Without the vitamin, scurvy would bring on rashes and gum diseases, not to mention very bad breath. Moreover, meat lacks fiber, so you'd probably be constipated. So you can't go to the bathroom and you have bad breath. You're not good. All in all, you wouldn't be healthy or comfortable. Now, some groups of people have survived on meat only. However, they have to eat the whole animal, everything, and some of it raw. So that is about meat eaters. And now, since we know about carnivores and we know about herbivores, I wonder what you call something that eats both of them. And we're going to see if Ms. Ramirez can tell us.
Hello, my name is Ms. Ramirez, and in this segment, we're going to be learning about omnivores. So before I tell you guys what an omnivore is, we're going to look at some examples of some. So I have some example of some animal skulls, and these come from omnivores. This first one, take a look at the skull. See if you can make some observations about what this animal might eat based upon its skull. So look at those teeth, the different shapes that you see and the sizes. I will tell you this one comes from a fox, and we do have foxes out here as well. And then my next skull is this one. It's a lot bigger than that other one. Look at the size of the teeth. Look at the different shapes of the teeth. So what do you think this animal eats and why? And then my next one, I don't have a skull for it, but I wish I did. But this one is an armadillo, and it's the armadillo skeletal plate. And it comes from the 9-banded armadillo, and the armadillo is an omnivore too. So think about, what do you think this armadillo ate when it was alive? And I have a live omnivore I'm going to show you guys, and y'all are probably the most familiar with this omnivore. It is a chicken. So this is Pepper, and she is a special type of chicken called a blue silky chicken. And they get that name because they have a patch of blue skin around their ear. And if you were to touch her, she is super soft like silk. Now, she's an omnivore too. In fact, my parents have a neighbor that also has chickens. So y'all probably have seen chickens before, but they are a good example of an omnivore. And pardon her weird hair, I need to cut that off. So she does get some haircuts every once in a while, just because sometimes her feathers get a little out of whack. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys so we can look at some more examples of omnivores, and then we'll explain what that word means. So let me find my slides. They seem to have disappeared on me, so let me pull them back up. So the first thing I want to show you guys are just a couple of pictures in case you didn't know what those animals look like that I showed you earlier. Here's what the real animal looks like. So here's our 9-banded armadillo. Here's our red fox, and then here's our coyote. Sometimes when we're out here, especially when we stay late for astronomy in the previous years, we even hear those coyotes howling or making a yipping sound. So all three of those animals are common Texas omnivores that we have in the area. So today in this segment, we're focusing on this particular type of consumer called an omnivore. And again, a consumer is just any type of animal that has to eat other things for survival. In this case, in this segment, we are learning about the omnivores. So hopefully by the time this segment is done, you'll be able to answer these two essential questions. So keep these in mind. The first question is, what do omnivores eat? The second question is, name 3 examples of Texas omnivores and describe an adaptation that helps them be a successful omnivore. Now, just to recap, remember, an adaptation is a body part or structure or behavior that helps an animal survive. So think about that as we go through the presentation. So here in the top corner, we have our famous Texas mammal. It is the state small mammal of Texas, and it is the 9-banded armadillo. So take a look at the armadillo and what it's doing. Think about, especially focus on its face. So what do you guys notice about its face, like its ears, its eyes, or its nose, that might help it be a good hunter or predator in this case? So hopefully you guys noticed it has super big ears, so it has good hearing to hear insects and little small things that it can eat. Notice how it's using its nose to sniff around and look for bugs and other insects. So those are some adaptations that help this armadillo find its food. But notice how super tiny its little eyes are. So it has very bad eyesight, so it cannot see very well. But it makes up for that poor vision by having those super big ears and that good nose for smelling. And then look at its feet, how it uses those claws to help it dig, to find insects, but also to dig its burrow. So that's the 9-banded armadillo. And contrary to what many people think, the 9-banded armadillo cannot curl in a ball. Instead, the 9-banded armadillo can jump, which unfortunately makes it kind of bad for if it's crossing a road and it sees a vehicle, it might get startled and jump up. That would be the bad thing to do because then it would get hit by the car, but it does jump when startled. Then on the bottom, we have our 3-banded armadillo from South America. That one can curl in a ball, and that is an adaptation that helps it hide from predators. But notice it also has those long claws to help it dig and look for those insects to eat. So not only do these armadillos eat insects, but they also eat plant material too, like berries and leaves and other fruits and veggies. So they are indeed omnivores. So let's take a look at that word omnivore. Again, omnivores are just a type of consumer, and they are animals that eat plants and animals or meat. So if we take a look at the Latin word for omnivores, omni just means all, and vorare means devour or eat. So essentially, an omnivore eats or devours all or everything. And then here's another example of our cute little fox over here. You can take a look at some of those adaptations that help this fox eat plants and animals. So in the first little video, we see those super sharp canines, those teeth that help it tear into other animals to eat it. And then this other little picture, we see the fox hunting. It's using its big ears, so it's good hearing to help it detect predators in the snow or underground. It has that big bushy tail to help it jump through the air to pounce on its prey or whatever it's eating. So that again is another Texas animal. And again, as we can see from this infographic, we learned earlier that herbivores eat plants. We learned that carnivores eat meat, but if they eat both meat and plants, we call it an omnivore. And for the most part, people are going to be omnivores. We eat a variety of different plants and animals, and things like salad, fruits, veggies, burgers, steak, chicken, all of those things. So for the most part, we're going to be omnivores. And so I'm going to show you guys a little picture, and this little video has examples of omnivores that we found either in my backyard or here at the EEC. So the first little video are possums in a persimmon tree at a farm. So they eat insects, but they also eat fruits and veggies. Here they're eating cat food on someone's porch. We have a cute little raccoon that was found here by the barn. That other raccoon got stuck in the barn, and so we released it. He was just a little baby learning to climb. That's one of our pigs. That day, that pig was eating crawfish from the pond. Here's Coyote Scat, and you can see all that fur that's inside the poop. So Scat's just poop. This is Spike. He's a bearded dragon. He's a pet. He's eating mealworms, but he also eats fruits and veggies. So he is an omnivore. Here's chickens at the EEC. They are scratching. They're using their claws to dig up insects and seeds. We have some dabbling ducks here in the parking lot. They're using their beak to filter through the water to find insects, but they also eat aquatic plants So all of the animals that you guys saw in this video have a very diverse diet. They will eat pretty much anything, whether it's plants or meat. And then in our next slide, we have some images of different skulls. So what information can animal teeth and skulls tell us? So take a moment to compare and contrast the different skulls and what are some things that you notice. So you can take a moment if you would like to pause the video and allow time for observation and discussion, but I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right into it. So if we take a look at our carnivores, notice we have a key on the bottom. So for our carnivores, you can notice that they have huge canines to help them tear into that meat. And then look at our herbivores. Their canines are pretty small, almost non-existent, but they have a whole bunch of these molars that are flat to allow for grinding, versus an omnivore, which has a mixture of both canines and these molars that are they're very well adapted for eating a variety of different foods. So humans, we have these canines right here, the orange teeth right here. And then so those canines we use for tearing into meat. So think of your chicken and your steak. And we also have molars as well that we use for grinding things like our fruits and veggies. So our teeth are well adapted to help us eat a variety of different foods. And then also notice not only can skeletons and skulls tell us what an animal might have eaten, but also the insides of an animal can also tell us if it was an herbivore or a carnivore. So take a look at some of these diagrams and compare and contrast the guts of each type of consumer. So what do you guys notice is the same or different between these three animals? So the first one we have is a rabbit, and it's a non-ruminant herbivore. And then we have a deer, and a deer is an example of a ruminant herbivore. And what a ruminant is, it's simply an animal that has a 4-chambered stomach. And you saw an example of a ruminant today when you went to the barn and you saw those cows. Cows are also ruminants. They have a large 4-chambered stomach. So essentially what's happening is when those animals are eating, they'll chew the food, the grass, it will go down into one of the stomach chambers, it'll get a little bit digested, and then eventually it's going to come back up to the animal's mouth, and they're essentially going to re-chew it all over again. So it's kind of like regurgitating their food, and they're going to re-chew it. It just helps, it's their body's way of helping to digest and really break down all of that they're eating. So that's kind of the difference between a ruminant and a non-ruminant herbivore. The bunny rabbit is not regurgitating its food to re-chew it, but the deer and the cows are. So regurgitate just means the food is coming back up into their mouth and they're re-chewing it. But notice how long the intestines are with the ruminant versus the non-ruminant. Also notice at this organ called a cecum. The cecum is super important in herbivores because these animals are eating only plants and they need to get as much nutrients as they can out of those plants. That cecum is super important because it houses a bacteria and an enzyme called cellulase, which helps to break down the cellulose in the plant material that they're eating. So that cecum is super important for herbivores. Notice how big it is with a ruminant, and notice how big it is with the non-ruminant herbivore over here. But then you come down and look at the carnivore. There's a huge difference. The carnivore's intestines and stomach tract are all much smaller because it's easier to digest meat. And notice its cecum is a lot smaller as well because it's not eating that plant material. So it's not having to store bacteria or that enzyme to help break down the plant material. So carnivores in general are going to have simpler guts. And what do you think our stomach looks like since we're an omnivore? So my at-home challenge for you guys is a simple scavenger hunt. See if you can find 3 examples of omnivores. So what live omnivores can you find in your backyard or schoolyard? And if you can't find live ones, think about what examples of omnivores do you spot on TV, in a movie, in a book you're reading, in a video game, or as a toy. So for example, when I was a kid, my favorite movie growing up was Fox and the Hound. So we see that cute little fox, and he's indeed an omnivore. I used to play video games. There's Sonic the Hedgehog, and of course, a hedgehog is an omnivore. And then one of my favorite movies was Pocahontas, and we have that cute little Miko. I actually had a stuffed animal, Miko, and of course, Miko is a raccoon, and so raccoons are also omnivores. So think about what types of omnivores can you find around your house. And I'm gonna stop our screen share, and I just have a quick one more omnivore I want to show you guys. This omnivore is not from Texas. They're originally from Australia, but in the US, they are a super common pet. This is Spike, and he is a bearded dragon. They get that name because when they get scared, this beard right here will inflate, it'll turn black, and that is how they scare away their predators. But Spike here is an omnivore because he eats insects, but he also eats fruits and veggies. So he's an omnivore, he eats everything. So that's all I have for you guys today on omnivores. We're gonna give it back to Dr. Gorman and he'll answer any questions.
Well, I guess she did answer the question. I guess we know now what an excuse me, omnivore is. Now, a question did come in though. It said, were there any dinosaur omnivores? Only a few of the known dinosaurs were omnivores, eating both plants and animals. An example of a dinosaur omnivore was the oviraptor, which ate plants, eggs, and insects. Now I'm going to share my screen with you. During this virtual field trip, students investigated that most producers need sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to make their own food, while consumers are dependent on other organisms for food. Ms. Nash did producers, Mr. Broughton did herbivores, Ms. Fuller, carnivores, and Ms. Ramirez just covered omnivores. Thank you. How did we do? If you would, teachers, go to www.tiny.cc/EEC feedback. Fill out that short form. We certainly would appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed the program. We hope your students learn from it. And we hope y'all have a great day and a great life. Thank you for joining us today.